frustrated. Hello to my loneliness. I guess that ignorance is bliss. Take me back to before I knew. Rewind, take it out of cue. Innocence can be a young man's game. Signed up for the hall of shame. I wish I knew how much I miss not knowing that we're all screwed. When we play our roles and ignore the problems. I like to be away in my patience. Stay up, I feel so outdated. How can we look the other way? Sun is out, but the sky is gray. What would happen if I took a chance? It's always hard at first glance. I don't wanna, but I know I gotta do it. The truth is hard to swallow. I think I'll chew it. I wish I knew how much I miss not knowing that we're all screwed. When we play our roles and ignore the problems. I wish I knew how much I miss not knowing that we're all screwed. When we play our roles and ignore the problems. I wish I knew educated, but I'm so frustrated. How much I miss not knowing that we're all screwed. Educated, but I'm so frustrated. When we play our roles and ignore the problems. I wish I knew educated, but I'm so frustrated. How much I miss not knowing that we're all screwed. Educated, but I'm so frustrated. When we play our roles and ignore the problems. I wish I knew.
Hello, future and fellow entrepreneurs. This is Collin Hardiman, host of Tailored Talk. And it seems like it has been a while, and I know it has been a while because I've been traveling the last few weeks and also moving. So I've been in the process of a move, moving to a bigger studio space, and then also traveling. As y'all know, I was in DC a couple of weeks ago, and then I just got back from Afrotech, which was in Austin, Texas. And that was a great event. Since I am a natural networker / connector, it was a great tech event surrounded by so many professionals, and I had a blast. So between the move and then traveling, going to all these conferences and things like that, yeah, I've kind of got out of my routine a little bit. So, but you know, I'm glad to be back here with y'all for episode 7 as we talk about teamwork makes the dream work. So I'm extremely excited to have tonight's guest. As I always do, I'm gonna read her accolades really quick. So she was originally born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. She is a Houston-based Lean Six Sigma black belt professional. Over the last decade, she has published 3 books, Taiese self-published her first book, In Love, The Love Story of God's Will for Us, which was published in 2011. She also published her second book and journal in 2016 entitled The Woman's Guide to Wisdom, Knowledge, and Power. Her second book actually gave the narrative on how to own a woman's wisdom, knowledge, and power through owning 4 key areas of life: security, self-control, assertiveness, and confidence. She released her third book, Men Raising Children on Their Own, in 2021. Taiese is also co-author with Manuela Ovis from the Fights Within podcast, and 8 other women on Dear Women, women sharing stories, experiences, and inspiring each other through God's word. She has many other accolades, but also I want to make mention that Taiese writing style weaves real life pieces into practical lessons. Her art is crafting empowering stories from her observations and then focusing on the wisdom gained from each experience to inspire people where they are in their lives. So without further ado, I would love to introduce my guest for this evening, Miss Taiese Nevels. Taiese, how are you doing this evening? And glad to have you on tonight's podcast.
Well, thank you. I'm doing well.
Yes, and I will gladly let you give you the platform to go over whatever accolades I did not read because it was a whole list full. So I don't want to do a
Yeah.
disservice because I do want our viewers to know who you are and your background. So what the things I didn't cover, please speak on those real briefly.
Okay, so there's just a few other books out there that I think would be helpful during our conversation today. So one of them would be, actually it's 2 of them.
Okay.
These books called The Career Hamster Wheel. And this book I co-authored with Devan Adams, is one of my just like my family members, my best friend from college. We got our electrical engineering degrees together. And so we
Okay.
wrote a book talking about what's your purpose, what's your why, what's your how. And so we got 2 editions of this book. One of them is more or less like the career, the proper one. Hey, this is everything kind of cleaned up. And then we have another one that's a special edition that is more like a graphic novel, but it talks about the same thing. They're one and the same. Life in your career, and then how and when do you yourself ready to go off and find purpose and know if you're in a career for success or you're in a career just for happiness, because there's different.
Right.
And then my latest book that I published, I released this in September. It's called 21 Days to Spiritual Elevation. It's a 3-day journey per chakra to increase confidence, improve conscious eating, and meaningful meditation.
Nice. And I
So
love the
that's just
cover
a
art. I
few.
gotta say I love the cover art on the
Oh,
hamster wheel.
yeah. The hamster wheel. We got that. Yes. Those are
Yes.
people in the hamster wheel. They're chasing the dollar and they chasing it around with their briefcases. And then the same for that one.
I
Yes.
love that.
My
I love
business
that.
partner did a great job on that, and we'll talk about doing market research and all that stuff in our conversation. He did a lot of market research. That is what he does, and so that's how we got to the covers.
So kudos to you for writing 4 or 5 books, because I know a lot of people are starting to get turned into authors and writing their
Hmm.
books. I'm one of them, and I don't even know where to start. So um, I'm gonna deviate just a little bit. So
Yeah.
what was the process of basically becoming an author and creating a book? Like I know I heard story that it's not very easy, but what was the process for you in writing your books?
So I think I have an advantage. So here's my advantage. I've been reading and writing since the age of 4. I'm in almost my mid 40s now, so I've been writing since I can remember. I think one of the main key things that I coach, because I have one client that is called the Women of Royalty. They're based out of Cleveland. They're a nonprofit organization. We just published a book, republished a book this year. It's called the Women's of Royalty, The Road to Royalty. And so I had to coach and mentor 17 authors across 5 states
Okay.
how to write. And so when you do this, it's basically about you making the time, and it's about a discipline. If
Right.
you read any of my things that I write, I always talk about you have to have a discipline, and it's that simple. So you start off, maybe you schedule 5 minutes a day. Now, if you do this every day or schedule it however you fit it into your schedule, eventually you'll go from 5 minutes to 10 minutes to 15 minutes and etc. You get to an hour and you write your content. But you have to be very specific about what you want to write and how you want to write. And then you have to have a target of when you want to finish. It's not that difficult. So, Colin, guess what? So, when you're ready to write, now you know someone who can help coach and mentor you through the process.
Exactly. So, and I can always go back and watch this just to get those tips again. But
Yeah,
yeah, you make it sound so seamless and easy. So, but I know, yeah, it is important to block out time to get your ideas, get your thoughts together. Because I mean,
yes,
you are writing about your life or whatever other stories you are. So I know doing like an
exactly.
autobiography on yourself can be kind of difficult. It's just like, this should be easy. This is my life. I should be able to tell my story to everybody else, but it's complicated, I guess, segmenting your life
Yeah.
out in chapters. So,
Yes, and then doing an outline, right? Because the thing is, when you're writing, you have to decide in the beginning, what is it that you want the audience to get out of your writing, right? So, what's the story? What's the lesson? What's the wisdom? What's the power? Do you want them to be able to take something away and then take action on it? So, that's what you need to figure out. And once you figure that out, the writing process becomes easier because then you know how to tailor your
haha,
storyline,
I see
right?
what you
And
did
get your
there.
audience in there. See?
I like how you just brought it back to the show. All right, that's what I'm talking
Yes.
about. So now for your accolades, let's just talk about a little bit your
Hmm.
professional accolades as far as the
Okay.
corporate world, your background in the corporate
Okay.
world, because that's
So,
going to apply into tonight's topic.
yes, so I have been working in corporate. It's still 2023. So for 23 years, I've been in some form or some fashion in corporate America. Outside of that, having my businesses that I own. But professionally, I'm what you call now is called a business process improvement consultant. So what that means is that I take my accolades from being a Lean Six Sigma black belt, from continuous improvement, and basically being able to go into a business, assess and watch how they do their business, how they perform their business, and then I can help them either create a budgetary plan to increase their revenue generation, or I could help them looking at their processes if it's in the operation side or it's in the manufacturing side. It could be transactional, and then how to improve their profitability and their bottom line. So that's what I've been doing for years. And really, when I started off, when I first started working, I was in global procurement, right? So you're like, okay, what's this about global procurement? But there was processes in this. And so I learned about processes. And I was an engineer. So I have my undergrad in electrical engineering, but I knew design and electrical stuff was like, I liked it, I did it, I got a degree, but I like helping people. And that's what business process improvement is. You help people actually be able to do their jobs more effectively and efficiently, and you help a business be able to generate revenue, or at the other side of it, create a better bottom line for profitability.
Wow, exactly, and that is project management, essentially, ladies and gentlemen, because I do
Or
project.
program.
Uh, Program management, project management.
Yes.
Yeah, because I do a lot of project management myself, and
Hmm.
I'm really good as far as like creating systems and cleaning up
Yes.
processes and things like that. So, our first bullet point for tonight: creating PMPs, R&Rs, and company overviews. So, for those of you who don't
Mhm.
know, policies and procedures. R&Rs are your rules and regulations. So when we're talking about teamwork, because we start our businesses, by the way, everyone, I know I didn't recap like I normally do, but please go back and watch the other 6 episodes because we
Hmm.
really go in chronological order from defining your entrepreneurial passion to building the steps of building your business from scaling, I mean, getting your
Right.
entity. And now tonight we're talking about building, systems and then building a team for your business because that's where we want to be as entrepreneurs, as business owners. You want to put employees in your business. You want to get
Right.
contractors so you can effectively scale your business. So, what would you say is a good way to create those policies and procedures within your business, Taiese?
Okay, so I have 3 points for every point we're going to talk about today.
Awesome.
So when we're talking about
Where's my notepad?
creating, I'll send you the notes afterward. I have it in a Word document. So when we start talking about creating policies and procedures, right? So there's three key things, and you talk about rules and regulations and company overviews. So number one, alignment. We have to have alignment with the company values and goals. So if you don't have that established as an entrepreneur, I need you to stop right now and then figure out what are your core values, what are your core goals, what do you want your customer to walk away with, right? Is it products? Is it services? Is it customer satisfaction? You need to have all those things kind of mapped out for you. So that's how you get to alignment. And so that's going to be so crucial for your policies and your procedures and your rules and regulations, right? The other piece that also helps with your day-to-day operations, right? To achieve your strategies and your goals. Okay, so that's number one, alignment with company values and goals. Number two, okay, y'all ready for number two?
Hey,
Clear
ready?
communication and accessibility. So I'm going to emphasize this very heavily because I'm sure Colin knows when you're project managing or program managing, communication can be the life or death of you. So if it's written, if it is in emails, if it's in a phone call, if it's in a Teams meeting, whatever it is, your communication got to be clear. So your verbal and your written needs to be very clear, and they need to be aligned, and it has to be easily understood, right? Now, when I talk about accessibility of that, that means where can your employees go to get this information to understand what's the rules, what's the regulations, what's the policies, what's the procedures. Make that very available to them. Oftentimes, I've seen over 23 years policies and rules and regulations. People, they know them, and then it gets in their head. And then when you ask where is it written, unless they're ISO 9000 like certified, they're always going to have those on hand. But most companies, sometimes it's stuck in one person's head and they know like this, but you have to
Right.
bring it up on a regular basis where they're training with each of your
Yep.
employees. So what I have seen for best practices is that your employees should be revisiting this information if it's annually, or you might want it every six
Quarterly.
months, right? So you want that on a forefront. Now, quarterly might be too much depending on your business and your scale and how your revenue and wherever they are in that
True.
functionality of your business and operations, right? But definitely at least twice a year. Once a year, it's cool, but twice, they'll have it down pat. Okay, so number three, regular review and being able to adapt. So, guess what we have experienced over the last 3 years since our wonderful world shut down? Everything has changed, right? Everything is dynamic. Everybody is pivoting. So, that is something you need to make sure is also regular. Are you regularly reviewing your policies and your procedures? Because I will speak a little bit on where I'm at right now with my role. I had a program that I've managed for the last 18 months for for the business I work for full time, and we had to revisit a lot of our policies and procedures. Policies, most importantly, because today's day and age, because of all kinds of things, supply chain constraints, all kinds of other things, policies don't match the environment. So
Right.
you need to make sure you always review and understand what's going on a macro and a micro level. So making sure you review and be able to pivot quickly. Okay. So those are the 3 points that I have for those topics.
All right, so we gotta dissect these though. So go. What is that first point? Give me that first point. One more
First
time.
point, alignment with company values and goals.
Okay. Why is it important for your would-be or future employees to align with those company goals? Please go over the
Okay.
importance of that. Oh, and
Okay.
before you do that, I do want to mention the communication. Communication, that's I pride myself on communication because communication is the most important thing because communication from partnerships to marriages, it literally can break those covenants.
Exactly.
Misunderstandings, arguments, they're 90 to 95% of the time, it's a misunderstanding or something that was miscommunicated. So that's
Right.
why I like to be clear, very crystal clear as far as like what it is that I'm trying to communicate or accomplish
Right.
or, you know, work in tandem with people with. So communication
Right.
is very important. So yeah, I just want to mention that before you go into the explanation of why it's important to get people on the same alignment.
Right. Okay. So that's a good segue. Communication. Now, when we're talking about the alignment with company values and goals, if you cannot clearly articulate your value,
Yep.
your goal of your business, your organization,
How would you expect them to?
the, I mean, you're the salesperson. Listen, here's a key. It doesn't matter what role you are. If you are running a business, you will always be your sales and marketing. So that means people need to believe and trust in what you say. You have to have that rapport with people. If you do not have a direction, you don't have a goal, and it's not in front of you, then you can't get there. So that is why it's so important. It has to be number one. You have to know the direction you're going. That's the goal. This is how we get there, you know? It's imperative because if your folks don't understand that, you can't get there. If you don't believe it, you can't get there because it starts with you.
Exactly. You are the leader. Everyone is looking up to you. Matter of fact, you're the one that's bringing them into your system, your engine. You're the engine. They're the cogs. So if the engine don't know what the hell it's doing, if the engine's not working, those cogs cannot they
Exactly.
cannot operate. So that's very important, and I can come from both angles here. I'll share my own story a little bit later, but I can come from the angle of a business owner and a project manager because I'm also a consultant. So because I've seen it happen, I've seen people who are
Yes.
extremely successful at what they do, but internally it is such a mess of what they got going on. There's a high turnover because they're not communicating effectively to their workers, their contractors, their employees what it is they want done. I guess to them it seems like this is all I want, this is all I want, why are they not getting it? But from the outside looking in, once they explain it to me, it's just like, okay, this is not clear. And then the systems are all messed up. So it's just like
Yes.
employees are frustrated. The business owner, the visionary is frustrated because everyone's not on the same page. Everyone's missing. Everyone's not connecting. So that's very crucial. I guess I am talking on it right now. So from the business owner perspective, when I created my policy and procedures, I just pretty much asked myself over the years when I started developing the system, what is it that I want? You know, I went from my freelancing years to getting the system down. So once I got that system down, that system was something that worked consistently. It made my life simpler. It was more efficient. So naturally, as I start bringing more people on, it's just like, okay, this efficiency is improving my work performance. It's improving my workload. Therefore, I'm getting more work. People want more of my services. Therefore, I'm overwhelmed. I can no longer do this myself. I need to outsource.
Right.
I need to get employees. So I'm bringing them in. So why would I introduce them to something different? I'm going to teach them the same thing that has worked for me solely. But it's like communicating that on a bigger level. So it's like, this is how it operates. This is how things work. And of course, as you get bigger in size, that is going to evolve. So secondly, oh, I'm sorry, what was I asked you a question and you was about to expand on that. So I'm sorry about that, Taiese.
No, what was the question? I was learning too. A great exchange.
Gosh. Okay, I got to go back. So well, we'll probably come back to it. It'll pop back in my head, but let's go to the second point you made, that second bullet point.
Okay. The second bullet point is what we re-emphasize on multiple occasions in this conversation within the last 5 minutes. Communication.
Yeah.
It has to be clear and it has to be easily accessible, right? It has to, and that's why, like, when you are building your dream team, it is imperative that you have somebody else review what you're communicating out, right? Once you scale up and you're much bigger, then you can have somebody that is their job to communicate. But if you're small, you want to make sure you have some good folks that can help you read something out and say, okay, does this say what I want it to say?
Right.
Does it convey what I need done? Or does it convey my goal? Does it convey what I need accomplished So you always have to ask that question. Always go back and ask, reread it. And sometimes you got to step away and then come back and then see if it makes sense, right?
Right.
And you got to know who your audience is. That's the other thing. When you're communicating, there are different types of communication styles and avenues to different people, and basically modes of it's because communication is like a vehicle, right? It goes, so it gets received, and then you get some back. So it's always going and coming back. So you also get feedback. So it's always going to go like that. So you have to
Exactly.
make sure you understand that.
And I want y'all to remember that because that's going to play into the next point I'm going to bring up here in a little bit. So going to the third point, because I already shared my piece on communication. So that third bullet
Yeah,
point.
so the third bullet point is regular review and being able to adapt. That's right now we're living in a world of uncertainty. We have so many geopolitical issues going on. We have wars all over the place. We have politics flying everywhere.
Whew.
We're finally at a place, I believe, that our global supply chain has improved, which is good. But now we have to look at what's the other factors that could impact that, right? And the way we do business now is way different than we've done it in the previous 30, 40, 50 years. So you have to be able to quickly adjust and pivot and be agile, right? Agility is important. Being able to pivot quickly is even more imperative than ever before.
Yes, because things are moving so fast. These intervals, like you said, they used to happen in 50-year, like I know, I'm not even 50, but they used to happen in 50-year increments
Yeah.
and intervals. And now it's like over time, they just get shorter and shorter and shorter. And
Exactly.
the pandemic really just accelerated that even more. So it's like Taiese said, it's just like there's a pivot almost like every year that's needed now because AI has now entered the conversation and it is really
Yes.
just changing the whole market, changing the environment. So it's just like if
It
you're not
is.
pivoting as a business, what that looks like as a business owner. So on the employee side, if you're an employee, I know this, this podcast really isn't centered on, centric on 9 to 5ers and things like that. But at the same time, it is because these are 9 to 5ers who might consider entrepreneurship. But for 9 to 5ers, what that looks like is if you're not acquiring those skills, then you're going to get outsourced or you're going to get replaced by AI. So if you're not getting those skills or certifications and being knowledgeable in AI, you're going to get replaced. For business owners, what that looks like, if you're not implementing those AI tools in your business, you are getting yourself way behind. Competition is going to eat you up and leave you in the dust, and you're going to be another blockbuster. Hate to say it.
Ah,
So it's important. I hate to be so bleak, but I mean maybe
right.
not that polarizing, but what I'm trying to emphasize here is it's important as a business owner to implement these AI tools into your business because it's not about just keeping up, but it's about streamlining. It's about making work
Yes.
easier. It's about communicating more effectively. It's about reaching your niche uh, more effectively. So it's like AI helps do all of these things for you. So
Right.
yes, please go more into that, or if you want to add on to that.
I do. I want to add on a couple things. I just taught a class at my 9 to 5 about artificial intelligence or AI, right? And so it is important because this is what I was talking with a colleague, and then we were in the elevator, literally in the elevator. And she was like, hey, we should do something with artificial intelligence. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I set up some time and we built out this wonderful, beautiful training. And we did a training on artificial intelligence of the various capabilities of it and then how it can be beneficial, right? Because if you're talking about being effective and efficient, that means, yes, you streamline, but some people don't know what that means. How do you streamline? And so what we did, we taught the course on artificial intelligence and the benefits of it. But also in that same swing, when we taught this course, we also talked about, hey, what are the ramifications, right? How does that impact our policies? And so you have to review that also. But what I would like to tell folks is it's not about getting left behind. Let's just put that out here there. When you have new technology and the way technology is evolving so quickly now, you want to make sure you stay connected. You can
Mm,
go do simple research, and simple research is a Google, or you could go to YouTube. Just get familiar with what these tools are, because artificial
right.
intelligence is a tool. It is evolving, and yes, it potentially could take your job or your role or get in your niche. But if you know how it works and you can leverage that,
Right.
so right now it's about staying relevant. And so my main thing I want to tell you, stay relevant by staying up to date with what's coming down the pipeline. Don't wait till you just see it on the news. Follow various people who are in different industries that are talking about different tools, and they're talking about different ways to run businesses, because that's part of your strategic competitive advantage, is to do the research.
Yep.
So don't get settled into where you are and think that's the perfect place. You have to constantly be on an evolutionary rotation, basically.
And we talk about market research almost in every single episode. So episode 1 through 6, we hit on market research. That is a
Yeah.
crucial component. As an entrepreneur, you always got to be in the know. You got to always know what's coming.
Mm-hmm.
You got to always know
Yeah,
where you're going. All right,
exactly.
I love it. So yeah, thank you for that correction there. That's why I love having guests as yourself on the show, because different perspectives. So, but yes. So as far as the going back to our point, because we did
Mm-hmm.
cover those 3 bullet points.
Mm-hmm.
So the creating PMP, so the rules and regulations,
Mm-hmm.
I would say on that, with the rules and regulations, I knew how things wanted to be done, how I wanted them
Mm-hmm.
done. I would say as I got interns, those
Mm-hmm.
interns really helped me make those rules and regulations. Because
Mm-hmm.
as they were doing things wrong, or kind of doing things their own kind of way, it was just like,
Right.
hey, let me wrangle y'all back in. And it's just like, okay, this happened with this group, and there's like another group will come
Right.
in. It's like, okay, it happened with them. All right, let me just start writing these things down as I was not disciplining, but as I was correcting and make it known of how
Mm-hmm.
things should be and how they are. I just start writing them
Right.
down. So essentially, that became my rules and regulations. It started as a one
Right.
sentence, then turned into a paragraph, then turned to 2 pages. So effectively, that's how I made my rules and regulations within my company. Because as I,
Mm-hmm.
involved interns, employees, and
Mm-hmm.
certain things were done, I just start basically carving out. Okay, do not do this. Do not do this. Do not do this. This is zero tolerance. This will not be tolerated. Discrimination, all that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So that was my method. But do you have your own method as far as like coming with organizing rules and regulations for your company?
Yeah, it goes back to market research. You gotta stay relevant, like, because everything is changing. Like, I'm serious, everything moves so much quicker now. So the other thing I want you guys to make sure you do, revisit your rules and regulations. How does it apply internally and externally? Because almost every day something's changing in your state.
Yes.
Are you paying attention what laws are being passed? Are you paying attention to what are some of the things that's going on the ballot? Because that's potentially could impact your business. Sometimes you might need to go get to your state representative and have conversations. And once you get big enough, then you'll be able to go to like maybe a Washington D.C. and start lobbying if you're that big, because that's what major corporations do. That's how they
Yep.
get a lot of rules and regulations in their favor. So stay within the relevancy, but keep your ear to the street, because there's something always going on. Don't
Yep.
think just because you wrote your rules and regulations that's the end all be all.
Right.
If you are in that state of mind, then it's potential your business is behind. So
Right.
that's why you have to have a periodic review on that, right? And then take it seriously when you do review it. Make sure also you have some type of somebody on the legal side who can help you review that too, to see the
Yes.
ramifications. Make
Yep.
sure you have the right insurances on your business. Make sure if you need it to be bonded, but stay relevant and have your ear to the street, and then have a network, as Colin is good at doing, a network that's going to keep you in the loop, so you could call them quickly and they could give you a rundown in 10-15 minutes of what changes are coming down the stream.
Absolutely. And thank you for that reminder. uh, you don't necessarily have to hire a lawyer, but if you have a family member that's into law practice or you have a friend that's into law, it is important to get those your rules and regulations, policies and procedures looked by a professional. So thank you for mentioning that, Taiese, because I definitely did do that when it came to the rules and regulations and me creating NDAs and all that kind of stuff for my contractors. I had a lawyer review that first, and once he was like, hey, change this, one lawyer had me change like a whole, like, it was like maybe 3 paragraphs. He was just like, you would have set yourself up for failure, because like it put basically them in control versus me as the business owner. So it's just like, yeah, I'm glad you brought this to me, because he was able to revise a whole lot of things. It's like, okay, now you're protected. So definitely have that looked as a professional. Don't rely on ChatGPT. Don't rely on the internet. Craft it to how you want it, then have a lawyer look at it. So definitely. Company overview. I would like to hear your take on the company overview, as far as like how you make that company overview, what that company overview is. Because I have my own story that I've shared in a previous podcast about this. So what is your take on company overviews?
Company overviews. It has to, like we mentioned earlier, alignment. It has to go with the company values and goals. And a company overview, it should be very customer centric. Let me just put it like that, because you're not in business to be in business. You're in business to make money. So how do you make money? Your customers, your clients. So it should be very customer centric on the satisfaction, because that quickly tells the story, quickly sells it, right? Your overview of who you are, what do you bring to the table, what is your transactional stuff, what is your product, what's your services. You have to have that on the forefront.
Right. And that was kind of like the outwardly facing company overview. I would like to come from the inwardly company overview perspective, because I will share this with y'all. My company bids on state contracts and going into government contracting as well. So there was a few contracts I bid on during the height of the pandemic, and one was in the state of Arizona. It was virtual events, which was our COVID pivot. We were super successful in the virtual event space. But there was one contract in the state of Arizona, so I registered with the state of Arizona to go for that contract. I found out about it 21 days before the bid closed, and you're thinking 21 days, that's more than enough time. No.
That's crunch time.
I mean, the overview or the RFQ for that was like 30 pages long. They were very specific as far as like what they wanted. So in a nutshell, in summary, I went to bid for that contract. Ultimately, I didn't submit it in time because all the requirements they wanted to know the internal structure of my company. They want to know they want to know the names of all my employees, the position of each, who they would be communicating with, what was the next steps, what would the delegation be like what they wanted to, like a magnifying glass, like into how, if my company wanted to open the bidding contract, like what we were going to do from day one all the way until it was completed. So even though I didn't submit it in time, what that did, even though I was almost complete, what I did when I looked back at everything I did to fulfill the requirements of that RFQ was, I looked at it and I was just like, wow, even though I did not get this bid or I didn't submit it in time before the deadline, what this has done is created a company overview for my company. So internally, it's my company's manual. Because what I did was it got the internal structure of my company. I listed all the names, and this is why I said I was going to mention later on, we was talking about the communication. Communication has to go both ways, because I actually listed how the communication happens within my company, from the top, which is me, all the way to the staff and support. So it's like communication goes down, communication goes up. So it's like it goes to my project manager talks to my producer talks to the executive assistant. So even though I didn't get the bid, it was still a win, because that essentially made my company overview. So all I did was just finished it, perfected it, and it's like now I have a literally a 10-page booklet with my company overview. So as I bring new employees in,
Right.
everyone gets a copy of that and they know exactly the internal structure of my company. So
Yes.
when people talk about cutting corners and all that kind of stuff, it's just like you're doing yourself a disservice and you're hurting yourself when you cut corners. When you do all the work, especially when you go into government contracting, because they're going to want to see everything.
Yes.
That's only going to help you in the long run, because that's going to make you more structured. It's going to make you more attractive when you go for those higher bidding contracts, and that's only going to help you scale. So I just wanted to share that because I love that Taiese gave the external company overview, because you got to make it focused towards your customers, but internally for your employees, they need to know, and it's even better for them to see the internal structure and workings of your company.
Right. And I want to add something that that is very important, because you said something that was important. When you are designing and creating your business, you have to think about, will you be dealing with the public sector or the private sector? Because they are very different. The way they're run is very different. Anything dealing with the public sector, like Colin was saying, is going to be extremely rigid, because this is governmental things, and governments have so many rules and regulations. You have to have point by point by point by point, and you can't cut corners there, right? Because this is dealing with the government. That's something else, as you're thinking about who is your clients, like I said, your customers. Is it going to be in a private sector? Is it going to be in the public sector? And you need to make sure, tying it back again to market research, what is necessary to be successful and to win a bid or to build out your RFQ, which is a request for quote. Those are some very important things. I've seen some very interesting things along my 23 years dealing with either private or public too.
Right, exactly. Even on the state level, county level, city level, they're gonna want to
Very,
see that you know your stuff, that you got your stuff together. And I know
yeah.
I keep saying previous episodes, but this is why we out the gate we told you, the way you structure it starts early.
Mm-hmm.
From
Yep.
creating that entity, the EIN number,
Mm-hmm.
you should already be thinking where you're going as far as the future, because once you get to those amendments, you're going to be coming out of pocket making those corrections because you didn't structure properly out the gate, or you wasn't thinking long term.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I got to have this to do government contract. Okay, now I got to go make an
Mm-hmm.
amendment on this. Now I got to go change this. And it's
Yeah.
expensive.
Yeah.
So please go back and watch those episodes if you haven't. Episode 1, 2, 3, all leading all the way up to 7, because we go in depth as far as like all the different avenues you can take your business. So you definitely need to do the market research. So, and you went in, I think you already went into that, but it's like the creating a growth plan, because you talked about that with your 3 points.
Mm-hmm.
So, creating a growth plan, Thais,
Mm-hmm.
what is it that you want to add on that as far as that subject?
3 points again.
Excellent.
Strategic vision and goal setting, right? What's your strategic vision? Kind of like what Colin was just saying. What is it strategically you're looking at? Don't just think about your first year. Think about year 3, think about year 5, think about year 7, think about year 10, and then past that, right? Number 2, market analysis and customer focus. I keep bringing that. You got to be customer centric. You got to go look at what your market is telling you, because your customer is going to give you the voice of the customer, and then the market is going to tell you how it will perform, or what's the gap, or how do you create a need. So that's going to be very, 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 very important. Don't forget that. And number 3, your resource allocation throughout, right? And it tells you also your scalability. If you got the right resources, then you can scale. But I've also seen businesses that are small businesses that happen to have some expansion through acquisitions, and they can't scale fast enough because they don't have the right allocation in the right places. So
Right.
those are my 3.
And everybody knows my story. I was forced to scale. How companies scale in a 1 or 2 years span, I had to scale in a condensed 4 months time, because the pivot idea was so brilliant that once we did a hard release of our new virtual services, it was just a wall of demand. And from May 2020 till January 2022, it was just non-stop virtual events. And even with the likes of American Express, the NFL, One United Bank, international clients. So I had to get systems in place. I had to automate. I had to hire people with the quickness, because I was getting to the point of burnout quickly, taking anywhere from 8 to 12 consultations every single day. These are supposed to be 30-minute consultations. I was going over for like an hour, 2 hours, and I was missing breakfast, lunch, dinner. So yeah, I had to make some key hirings quickly. So yeah, it was a blessing in disguise. It was a great problem to have, but a problem nonetheless. All right, so we got to dissect those points again. So let's go back to point number 1.
Yes, the strategic vision and goal setting.
Yes.
All right, so once again, let's go back. We mentioned it earlier, communication, right? Why is communication important? Because if you can't say it clearly and succinctly, basically, who cares?
Right. Exactly.
So that is important. And you have to understand what's your customer base, right? Because your customer base is going to dictate how you do your strategy, right? And it depends also, are you looking for high ticket items? Are you looking for low ticket items? You got to understand all of that niche and mesh of lots of different things that run a business, right? Other things, what's your offerings? Are your offerings going to grow? Are they going to stay? How do you get to market? How do you going to set up your new products for launch? Blah, blah, blah. So lots of, look, it's so much thought to it. You're like, oh my God, I never thought a new product initiative was going to drive me crazy, right? It's about how you go on to market. How do you know this is the right thing to do? So
Exactly.
that's important. And then the other piece that's important as you're looking at strategic vision is if it's dealing with your revenue generation, you need to already have budgeted at some point. What's your budget? Your sales budget. That is very important. You got to have a sales budget. I can't stress how important that is. Make sure you spend the time on your sales budget, because once you have your salespeople, even if it's you and you start going through that funnel, there's going to be certain percentages when you go from exploratory to proposal, and from proposal to quotation, from quotation to negotiation. These going to have different percentages of what will go through your funnel. So please make sure you understand that, okay, for your sales budget.
Absolutely. And please tune in to episode 8, because we're going to go into that when we talk about systems and automations, back office, and converting those employees into sales agents. That's very important. So KPIs, metrics, all those things. So
yes, KPIs. We love numbers. Numbers.
Yes,
oh my God.
they are your friend.
Have numbers. Yes. This is what we teach. This is what I teach my students who are green belts. As I'm teaching black belt classes for Lean Six Sigma. Yes. You have to quantify. That's why I emphasize when you're building out your sales budget, you got to have your numbers together. Quantify these things, because that gives you a target. That gives you a number. And you can say, looking at trends in your trend charts, am I going in the right direction, or am I heading in the wrong direction? But I'll leave that there. So number 2, we're talking about market analysis and customer focus. Going into numbers again. Listen to the numbers. The numbers don't lie. Numbers are going to tell you something, but you have to start digging into it. And you should probably have somebody who is a market analyst on staff. That's going to be helpful. I didn't think it was so important until we were doing my book I mentioned, The Career Hamster Wheel. Devan Adams, he's an MBA also. That's what he does. He does market analysis. And I was like, okay, it can't be that difficult to create a book cover. And he went so in depth. I'm telling you, because we had a whole different book cover, but he put the market research out there. He said, let me figure out what's going to work. And that's how we got to the 2 covers. And as Collin quickly picked up, he said, I love the covers.
Yes. I was just about
there
to say
we go.
So that lets you know he knows what he's doing, huh?
He definitely knows what he's doing. Let's see quickly. You need to be able to quickly identify opportunities.
Yeah.
A piece of identifying opportunities, you have to be able to define a problem that you're solving as a business. If you can't do that, you shouldn't be in business.
Yep.
There is always a problem, or you're creating a solution for something. So know that.
Discovering your entrepreneurial passion. See, episode one.
Yeah.
So, so that was, we hit all your 3 points, correct?
No,
All right.
number three, the
Okay, number
resources.
three.
Let's see, resource and scalability. Let's see if I can, because I have a cheat sheet, y'all. So, um,
We
main
here
things
for it.
I want you guys, yeah, look, main things I want y'all to take away from. Is the key thing is a well thought out growth plan ensures resources are allocated. Keyword, effectively and efficiently to support the expansion of your business without
Right.
compromising, because Collin just gave us a story. The business was compromised. You have to scale without compromising your business, your products, your services, your offerings.
Yep. And I will co-sign that with the business was making tons of money during the pandemic, but a lot of money was being spent with those systems, with the logo redesign, with the creating of the website, with the restructuring, because I got out of a DBA and LLC, and key hirings. That was the most expensive, but the most crucial and the most important. During the height of the pandemic,
Yep.
my most important hirings was my project manager, operations manager, brand strategist, marketer, social media manager, CPA, bookkeeper. Like those these people are not they're not cheap, but that is exactly who I needed around me because they created that structure, something I did not know how to do. They created that structure that my business needed to scale. And then, of course, when all the money was going out, as far as like the PPP and the EIDL, my business qualified for every single one of those CARES Act that was being distributed because I was able to set up my entity, because those key people were able to structure my company properly. So my marketer was finding our correct customers, the customers we need to be dealing with. My bookkeeper was doing all the quarterly statements. My CPA, of course, was doing the business taxes. Social media manager was like basically documenting everything, showing the behind the scenes of everything we was doing, which was garnering more attention, which was bringing in more traffic. So, I mean, I could just go down the line, but those were key hirings, and nobody told me to do this. It was just the market told me to do this. It was just the problems I was facing. I was just like, okay, I need help. I need to like staff up as soon as possible, or
Right.
I'm gonna start. Basically, it's just gonna start imploding. I'm gonna start upsetting people because I'm not meeting deadlines. I'm not making quota. The
Right.
quality of the work is going down because I can't keep up. So, so like Taiese said, the market will let you know. Your customers will let you know how you're doing within your own business. So, good stuff. I love these kind of talks, man. Oh, I love it.
So look, I think it's a good pivot into your next talking about hiring talent. I think you already kind of skipped into that. So
Yeah, and that's why
you
I
need to
love
tell us
that.
some more about scaling.
That's why I love these talks, because it's like they just segue right into the next point. So perfect. So yeah, I have an unorthodox way, even though I just shared it, of how I hired talent and scaled my team. But Taiese, I would like you to go in depth as far as, because this is your area, this is your expertise. So what would you say? She said, don't, she's like, don't give me that.
I don't know if it's my expertise.
Okay,
Thank
but
you for the
well,
kudos, but
you can definitely talk on
I
it.
do know.
So
Yeah, yeah. So I haven't gotten to a place in any of my businesses where I've had to scale up like Colin, but just working within businesses and then understanding how dynamic the impact of each employee is in their roles. When you're doing, let's just say from this perspective, being a Lean Six Sigma professional, when you're going in and you're looking at policies and processes, you're looking at how the people are working, you start to understand if there are not the right people in the right places, there are pivotal places people need to be. And like Colin said, for a business such as his, as he was talking about, the social media manager, because guess what? That's part of your sales and marketing. If you don't have the right people in the right place, you don't have a funnel coming in,
Right.
right? When you're talking about the financial side, financials are broken up into different pieces, right? He talked about a CPA, he talked about bookkeeping. This is all important because you have to
Yes.
produce your income statement. You have to have a profit loss statement. That's one and the same. Then you have to go and say, okay, what does my assets look like? What do my liabilities look like?
What does
Okay,
the health of your
where's
business looks
my
like? When you get those quarterly statements, it lets you
exactly,
know how the health of your business is. Am I doing good? Am I doing bad?
exactly. So those are key places. I believe you said you had an operations manager. That's key too, because that person is going to manage the operations, and that means day to day, right? They're going to know how to address if anything kind of go haywire. You want to make sure you have somebody who can handle those things. Operations is very key for
Yep.
any business, and if you ever work inside of a corporate business, you'll see operations is almost the heartbeat of your
Yes.
business, because either they're doing the interface with your customers,
Yep.
but they're
And
also going to interface and liaison within.
with your team. Yep.
Yep.
Because my operations manager was
Less,
essentially a clone of myself. Because I couldn't
yes,
be on everything. It's like I had to work on other things. So it's just like to have a clone
yes.
of myself to talk to the team to convey exactly what it is that I need without
Yeah,
me being there. That was so. That was such a
it's
relief.
relief.
Yes. I'm sorry,
Yes.
Thais. I cut you up, but go ahead.
No. That's important because that's one of the main lessons learned I had in running my program that I've run for 18 months with my company that I work with. This is the key. You have to learn how to break down any program that you're running, and this means business also. What's your strategic standpoint? What's your tactical standpoint? And what's your communication? Those three things will continue your success.
Say
If
that
you
one more
don't have a
time.
strategy, okay. So you have to break down your program, your business into strategic, tactical, and communication. If these three things don't exist, you're going to have problems. Strategic is what Collin is for his business. He's strategically creating these visions. Tactical is someone like an operations manager who's going to make sure the day to day is handled, and they're going to take care of the tactical things going on within the business. Communication, that means internally and externally. So internally facing, you'll probably have your operations manager handling that, right? She's communicating between your CPA, your bookkeeper,
Yep.
your media manager, right?
Yep.
These things are different. So I think sometimes people don't understand how important it is to keep these things with a line of demarcation, because one person cannot do it all.
Right. And I forgot to mention my executive assistant. That was an important hiring also. So the person that's like right next to me. So I have an assistant
Mm-hmm.
take notes during crucial meetings or consultation with
Mm-hmm.
clients, and then they can give me all those notes. It really
Yep.
just, so between my operations manager, executive assistant, it really just made my life so much simpler. Um, and
Yep.
this might,
Which is the tactical side.
yeah, and this might be maybe I might be deviating a little bit, but I just feel like sharing
Mm-hmm.
this. The operations manager was a difficult and but the most crucial hiring within my company, and the reason why is because during the height of the pandemic, I hired mainly Black women, so I employed 12, 13 Black women. Um, so when it came to find an operations manager, there were two candidates. I whittled it down from four, and there was two that essentially had their own strengths that I needed. One was more sales oriented, as far as like they had a big sales background. They could convert my employees into sales agents and find clients. The other one was more system centric, where it's like they could build out systems, the KPIs, metrics, and that's what I needed at that point in time. But also, um, it's just like this is going to be the person that's essentially going to be me that's communicating to my team. So a lot of people didn't think about this,
Mm-hmm.
but that bothered me so much as a business owner because it's like I just I think it was just a very sensitive area of who I was
Mm-hmm.
putting to lead my team. Because
Mm-hmm.
one of those project managers, I'll just say it was white, and another project manager was Black. and both of them were women. So it's just like I had to really think about that. I wasn't just, oh, let me just hire this person because they're gonna go. I had to think about the dynamic of how that would have possibly affected the team dynamic also, where it's like,
Exactly.
okay, who's this coming in? This person just came in. We've been here for 8, 9 months, and now they're barking orders. And so those were things I had to really consider. Nobody told me this. This is
Right.
just like an internal struggle that was going on within myself. It was just like, oh, I need this. But then it was like, oh, how's that dynamic? Because I just knew if
Right.
something as little as communication or just the communication style could affect the whole team adversely, then it's like this well-oiled machine that has been built could quickly just go awry. So
Right.
it was a long process. It took probably like 2 months. But essentially, I made the decision to hire the more the KPI systems oriented one,
Right.
and it worked out beautifully. Everyone loved her,
Right.
and yeah. So,
Right.
but I just wanted to bring that up because as a business owner, visionary within your business, these are things you might come across, and these are things you need to consider because it's not just simply plugging in people and just playing. You got to think
Right.
about the
Exactly.
dynamic. You got to think about those dynamics of how it will affect your team because all it takes is one little ripple and everything just messes up. So that's why I want to add that piece.
But this is important because this ties, actually, I had 3 points for it, right? And you touched on it's point number three, but I'm gonna go through the other two first and then we'll get to three, right? That's strategic workforce planning. Number two, effective recruitment and onboarding process. And number three, a cultural fit and diversity and inclusion. That is probably one of the most imperative and
I was on point.
yes, and concrete things you need within your organization because I've been in plenty of organizations that lack emotional intelligence, and this is something I'm big on. So that's I forgot to pull that book out. I want to show y'all that book too. Emotional intelligence is imperative to running a business. You have to understand the human psyche and how people get along and how they'll deal with conflict or negotiation or taking
Yeah.
orders or being able to be autonomous in certain things and don't need you to tell them step by step how to do something specifically.
Hmm.
Um, Cultural fit makes or breaks a business. They
Yes.
say it's a quote that people don't just leave a company, they leave a bad boss or they leave a bad culture. And that is honest to goodness the truth.
Yep. That's definitely true. I think the biggest one that comes to mind was what happened with Essence, because I'm really big, heavily involved with Essence and going to the Essence Festival. And then there was that whole scandal that came out. I think it was in 2019. It was right before the pandemic or 2020. I'm not sure what year, but there was this whole scandal of like they're saying the company culture was toxic and there was harassment going on and all that kind of stuff. And then Essence ended up hiring like a whole legal firm to do
Right.
the internal investigation. It was a long process, but you know, it came out that there was no evidence and basically, you know, information was falsified. So it wasn't true, but still the damage was done. So,
Yep.
you know, the CEO
Done.
stepped
Yep.
down, the owner became just a part of the board and things like that. But yeah, that is important because even though it was found not true, it's just like if there is a little bit of a toxic culture and people feel like they're being mistreated or they're not being treated fairly, it could really result in, you know, bad stuff being said. It could be a quit. It could be a downturn in performance, and then it could turn to whispers in other people's ears. So it's like it's so many things that could happen. And yeah, internally is how business is destroyed. It's not from the external; it's the internal. So it's just like if something's poisonous on the inside, yeah,
That brings up another key piece I don't think we've touched on, but it's about protecting your brand and protecting your reputation. You have to, that's the other thing you have to consider when you're doing your interviewing and you're strategically planning out your workforce. You have to ask those situational behavioral questions to see how people respond so that you know who you have on staff and have on deck.
yeah. Because you have those what personality tests also. I did one of those my last corporate job. It was a personality test, and I really liked it because it really listed everybody's strengths and weaknesses, and
Mm-hmm.
that lets the founder and the
The
CEO
leadership
know,
though.
yeah, leadership
Mm-hmm.
know where to plug everybody in, where everybody's strengths are. So it's not really weaknesses. It's just like, oh, they're better in this area or they're better in this area versus like,
Right.
okay, I think they have all this skill set. Let's just throw them here. Let's just throw them here, and it's just like, yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna start integrating that into my business actually. Those personality
Yeah.
tests.
Yeah. It's
Um,
important.
Yep. So, is there anything else you want to mention on the hiring talent and scaling your team?
No, I
Okay.
think we covered a lot.
Yeah, so I already shared my story, but I don't think there's nothing else I need to add on that. So we'll go right on to the next point. So identifying expansion opportunities, and I know you already talked about that before.
Mm-hmm.
So is there anything else you want to expand on expansion
Mm,
opportunities?
I, yeah, no. Most importantly, y'all, I learned my lesson. Market research and analysis. Period. Hashtag market research
Yeah.
and analysis. And listening to your customers, the voice of your customer.
Yeah.
We call it in Lean Six Sigma your VOC, voice of the customer, or you want to do your voice of your business or the voice of your workforce. Listen to those things because those will help you also identify gaps or opportunities for either horizontal or vertical expansion. So,
Awesome. And I love that Taiese comes from the external because I can always give the internal. So expansion
hmm
opportunities, of course, during the height of the pandemic, also strategic partnerships. It could look like that
yeah.
because we were really good as far as producing virtual events, and through the
hmm
magnificent, I don't even know what to call it, but through the Clubhouse. Clubhouse was a
Uh-huh.
super blessing, especially during its very popular days. I mean, it's in its heydays now, but when Clubhouse was a popular social app, I was on there networking, connecting like crazy. Like once I figured out how it worked, I mean, I was on stages with Grant Cardone and things like that, um,
Wow.
offering offering my perspective on things, giving my advice, but also in a lot of business rooms, just listening and getting so many gems and
hmm
soaking in so much knowledge. Um, so what that did also was it put me face to face. So a lot of those key hirings came off of Clubhouse. Those
That is
those
awesome.
those positions that I named, like 5 of those 7, came off of Clubhouse.
hmm
Because I was just able to effectively find people. I was able to just type in keywords like brand strategist and find people and then
hmm
or be in rooms with them, just hear them talk and then go on stage and speaking with them. But
hmm
I met a young lady who has a concierge service, and she's very good at event planning and programming. We were
hmm
extremely well at producing events, so doing all the
hmm
production, so the event production. So she was not so well versed in the production side, but great at the planning and programming. We were not so great on the planning and programming side, but our strength was on the production side. So can you see the match
hmm
made in
It's
heaven?
a perfect.
It
It's the
was
perfect marriage. Getting
exactly.
it together.
So we formed a strategic partnership, and we offered on our already new service for the pandemic, we also offered
hmm
a concierge service within that, where it's just like when people hired us, if they didn't have their own internal teams, or they didn't
Right.
factor in just the schedule, or it's like factoring in gamification,
hmm
factoring in a DJ, things like that, our concierge partner provided that. And
Awesome.
a few of our clients elected to use that service, and from that, they were able to get a stellar program, and
Right.
that was all handed off to us to execute on the production side. So that was a perfect partnership. So expansion opportunities internally looks like that as well. Finding people
hmm
that align with your why, align with your messaging, and if they're
Yeah.
doing things on a much bigger level than you are, then that can be very pivotal for
A
you as
great
well.
partnership.
Exactly.
Yes.
Awesome.
That kind of that makes me think about also no matter where you are, finding your sponsors, finding your mentors, and then your board of directors. That's your trusted um, circle of folks that help you
Oh, we
think
haven't got
about
to board of
bigger, better.
directors.
Oh yeah. Just dropping notes as I'm thinking about it. I'm like, man, I just learned that when I was up at a conference in DC. I was
Yep.
actually at a conference, not the conference Collin was
We
at,
was
but
in
I was
DC
in
at the same
DC at
time.
another.
She was like right across the
Yeah.
Potomac, right across the Potomac. She was like, "Oh, I'm here for a conference too." Like, what? I'm here at a conference. Are you at the same conference? She was at another. We was
Yeah.
like there at the same time. So,
Yeah, yeah. I was attending a executive conference leadership for a middle level manager symposium, which was phenomenal, phenomenal. But you also, that's the other thing, as you're building and you're working in your industry or your entrepreneurship boat that's going down the river or the ocean, whatever.
the Potomac.
Continue, yes, continue your learning. Oh my God,
Yes.
don't get complacent, y'all.
Right.
Always stay learning, stay researching. So stay go find out what your competition doing. That's where you're gonna get a competitive advantage. Go see what they doing. If you need to reverse engineer some stuff, I mean, don't think none of these businesses not reverse engineering stuff. So I'm just telling you, just know what they're doing. So you know what you need to do. Listen to what their customers are saying. Do your surveys. Surveys are important. Don't ignore that. That's information. And the best thing
Free.
is you can, yeah, you can build partnerships with your clients and your customers because that's how you're gonna ebb and flow.
Yep.
They are your partners to tell you what works well and what does not work well. And then you can leverage them to help create a solution.
Exactly.
Then you can build it and then you can launch it to upgrade. And there's another stream of revenue or revenue generation. I'm just saying, it's all out there.
I'm gonna let that marinate just a little bit, so they catch that.
Yeah,
Cause you just broke
I'll
it
stop
down.
there.
You broke it down beautifully. Cause yeah, those. I forgot which episode I said this in, but it is important because people don't necessarily buy from you because from what you offer. That's one of the things, but the main thing is people resonate with your why.
Yep.
You found out you have a lot of things in common. So it is important as a business owner that you convey what your why is. Why do you do what you do? We know you offer these services, but why do you offer these services? And what you'll find is people will align with that. It's just like, wow, that's exactly what I'm about too. I'm gonna support this business. Like not necessarily because I don't necessarily need their services, but I love what they're about. I love what their why is.
Yes.
So that's
Yes.
very important to make sure you convey that message because that's on my company about page as far as like our why, what we're about, why we're about quality, and everybody knows what it is what we do, but it's just like why. So and we got our 4 pillars on there. I'm not going to go over those right now, but have that somewhere, like know what that is, and then also have it somewhere written down. Have it on your website definitely because you should have a website.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
All right, so last thing we want to hit on tonight is managing those finances.
Oh my
Nope.
goodness. I think Colin said it best prior to. Have somebody managing that. If you're small, you can manage it to a certain degree, but go get professional help
No,
with
please,
finances.
please.
Go get help. So, okay, I got 3 points. This is my theme, 3 points, right? Number one, strategic budgeting and forecasting. There's a budget in everything. Understand what your business looks like financially because your income statement or profit loss statement will be the financial health of your business, right? Um, Rule of thumb for corporate businesses, they generally want to grow every year by at least 10%, which means you need to become effective and efficient every year. So you have to be reducing costs in some fashion or becoming more lean. But it doesn't necessarily mean you fire people. It means you go and you have someone help you assess how your business is running. You have a professional who might be a Lean Six Sigma professional or a project manager, a program manager that works in those spaces to say, hey, I sat and I watched how your business is doing. This is where you could lean out, or you can make it more effective and efficient. That's going to be key, because then you can start strategically budgeting and forecasting for bigger things, right? And bigger visions.
Right.
Number two, risk management.
Oh,
All right, let me tell you guys a secret. Excuse my French. If shit could go wrong, it will go wrong. So you need to be talking about mitigation plans at every point in your business. Learn to have a mitigation plan. Risk management and contingency planning is so important. It will not go as you think it will go, like
trick,
we've learned over the last 3-4 years.
trigger
Things
alert.
pivot. Yeah, right. Things change. When
Yes.
things change, what's your plan?
Mhm.
A tool I'll tell you guys to look up, which will be helpful, and we call it a PFMEA. The process mode effective analysis, which means it's a plan that looks at your processes if shit goes wrong. Do that. Think about what could go wrong. Don't get to a point where shit go wrong and you thinking about it.
Don't be
Plan
reactive.
ahead,
Be
y'all.
proactive.
Very proactive. Okay. And actually, if you could be proactive, you guys should be preventative too. All right. Number 3, data-driven decision making. Quantify. KPIs. Numbers are your friends. Your business will tell you in its numbers how it's performing. Your sales are going to tell you if your product, your service is resonating with your clients or customer base. Yeah, it will. If your numbers are dropping, you need to quickly figure out, and don't wait. If you start to notice the trend, it depends. Okay, so it depends. Don't just wait quarter over quarter. Pay attention month over month how your business is actually performing. Don't wait quarter over quarter. Pay closer attention as you're smaller, because then that will give you discipline to look at it from that standpoint for trends when you get bigger. Okay, so that was my 3.
So going back to that second point of proactive versus reactive, I posted this on my gram, October 8th.
Oh, the gram.
If you're
What does it
always
say? Read it to us.
if you're always on the defensive, reactive, and never on the offensive, proactive, you will not win.
That's
I'll
true.
say it one more
Football,
time.
basketball, all life.
If you're always on the defensive, ergo reactive, and never on the offensive, ergo proactive, you will not win.
Yeah.
Football, I mean, everybody knows football. They say defenses win championships, which is true, but you have to have an offense. If that offense isn't producing points, defense can make as many stops as they want to, but if the offense isn't performing, that team is going to lose because defense is going to get worn down after a while. After 4 quarters, defense can only do so much if offense isn't producing points. See that with Texas, with them blowing these leads. Anyway, that's neither here or there. But
Oh my gosh.
okay, I did say trigger alert, so
Yeah.
I have
Here's
to.
another thing with football. I was gonna say your special teams too. Your special teams, hey, in a clutch. Excuse me, punter. Can you get us 3 points? 3
Right.
points. Get us 3 points. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you. But yeah, so many instances. But I said trigger alert because I have to share this. Because I talked about all my successes. Pandemic, tons of money, hiring, da 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 da. I was looking at the numbers. I knew that the COVID wasn't gonna last forever. I knew the successes of the COVID service I knew that was temporary. So there was a plan, because I was looking at the numbers, I was looking at the data. Everybody was more than anxious to get back outdoors. Everybody wanted to be out, back to normal, da da da. So it's just like, okay, looked at the numbers, looked at the data. There was a plan. Plan was to niche in more. It was to keep current clients on a retainer and it was to go into government contracting. Those were the three contingencies. They were not executed on. 2022 ended up being the worst year in business for me as an entrepreneur. I've been in business for 14 years. 2022 was by far the worst year in business. All those years of success followed by one of the worst years because I did not execute, because I did not pivot properly. And because of that, the fallout was that. One of the worst years. My business was lucky to have survived, but a lot of hard lessons was learned through that. So when Taiese mentions that, it's real. I'm telling you, from all the successes and everything we had and successful pivot and scaling and almost, you have to stay on top of everything. You got to constantly evolve. You got to constantly move. You definitely got to have contingencies in place, because one little slip and you're free falling. Before you know it, you're free falling. January started off with 3 of our biggest clients pulling out. Once again, that wasn't that big of a surprise. It hurt it, but it wasn't that big of a surprise, because once again, I was looking at the data. I knew that all these big brands that was hiring my company to essentially produce virtual events, over that time, I knew they was training their own internal teams to be able to do that themselves. Because remember, we was in unprecedented times. People were panicking. This was all new information. So just the fact that we came out the gate with this new service, when people were trying to figure it out, it was just like, yeah, take my money. But overall, corporations are always making adjustments. So they're always seeing where they can save money. So it's just like, hey, we're going to save money, tons of money, by training our own internal teams to run our own internal meetings and virtual events and things like that. So that's essentially what happened. That's why I was trying to niche in. That's why I was trying to get everybody on retainers. So since that didn't happen, since the execution wasn't there, that was the fallout. So it's very imperative that you do not get complacent, which I did not, but have a contingency and plan, which I did, but the execution wasn't there. So it's like having those 3 things. I know there's more things, but I would say those are the 3 major things that you need to have always as a business owner. You need to be looking at what's ahead. You need to already have a plan. You need to be looking at the data and be ready for a pivot. So luckily, of course, I'm coming out of that hole, but I want 2022 stricken from the record. When people say 2022, I literally just, it literally just brings bad memories. But I wanted to share that with y'all because, this podcast is about helping y'all, adding value to you. And we can do that not just through our successes, but also through our failures. So we want you to avoid these pitfalls. This is what this podcast is all about, to give you a streamlined, very clear, concise path to successfully get through that first 5 years, which is the first 5 years which most businesses typically fail. So I just wanted to share that. So thank you, Taiese.
No, I mean, I think the most important thing is to know that as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, failure is not failure. It's a lessons learned, right? So I have a question, Collin.
Yes.
So execution.
The interviewee has now become the interviewer.
Yes. So for execution, what is now the 3 things that are going to be your key action points no matter what? Once you have your strategy, how are you going to ensure that you can execute on time without delay?
Well, it's one, those having all that contingency in place all the time. That contingency is always going to be there. So it's like creating a fail safe. Also, going into the government market, because going into the government market, this is a client that is essentially recession proof. They print the money. So clients before were deeply affected with the market and things like that. Government, not so much. They're unfazed by everything that's going on. But you said 3, correct?
Two, you said expansion, right? Expanding into a different market.
Yep.
What's number three?
Contingency, and then number three. Let me think about this really quick. Oh, learning from those lessons. Making sure that doesn't happen again. Yeah, learn from those lessons.
Mm-hmm.
Not repeating the same thing. So it's just like the
Mm-hmm.
only way a lesson becomes a blessing is if you learn from it. So yeah,
Yeah.
learning from those lessons and not repeating that. So I can confidently say all the failures and hiccups I faced along the way in this long journey of entrepreneurship, it hasn't really been the same problems that have happened again because that pain is something you don't want to be reminded of. So that will make you put reinforcements so that doesn't happen again. So it's like the problems you face
Exactly.
are going to be newer problems. So those newer problems should be bigger. It means you're growing. So different levels, different devils. Ain't that right? Right, Taiese Nevels?
Yes, there we go. Exactly. I was gonna add to your thing
Please do.
for other folks for their lesson learned. When you face something that is a negative impact, especially to your revenue, I want you to make sure that you revisit your KPIs.
Yeah.
You understand that you have to go back to your policies and your processes and your systems on when this certain thing happens. The next immediate step is this particular thing to make sure
Yep.
you don't go back to where you came from,
Exactly.
right? So those are the things like we were mentioning way earlier in this conversation, your policies and your procedures, your rules and regulations, all of that stuff, that's
Yes.
why it has to be constantly reviewed.
Evolving.
That's why it's
Yep.
it's and it's key to have things quantified. As we mentioned earlier, your numbers don't lie. When you see the numbers, follow the trend. Don't sit on a trend, follow it and make a plan. And then before you even follow on a trend, make sure you've already looked at your mitigation plans and have actions behind each one. That's it.
Wow. And that is how we are going to end this episode. That was awesome. Thank you so much, Thais, for being on tonight's episode and lending your advice and expertise. This was good. This was great. Y'all, and when we talk about scaling, this podcast is essentially another business. I heard people, before I started the podcast, people were telling me that, hey, this is like another job, or like having another business. Now that I'm doing it, it's like, it's true. It's true. But I'm already thinking about scaling. So like I said, I'm acquiring a bigger space because season two, I've already have big plans for season two. I want my guests to come in person. So instead of virtual, they're going to come into the physical studio. There's going to be more advanced topics. Thais kind of hit on that as far as like a board. Because, when you're scaling your business, you're going to essentially get a board. And you don't want to be voted out by your own board. You don't want to be ousted your own company. So
Ooh.
we're going to get into more advanced topics. But right now, we're just trying to get everybody through these first 3 to 5 years. So we don't want to put the cart before the
Yes.
horse. But this was a great topic. I really appreciate you, Thais.
Okay.
Please, as I always do with all my guests, she might be a little biased, but what are some favorite books that you recommend our viewers read?
Oh, I'm not biased at all. Like I will put my one book first and then the rest of them. Here, this is what I
Promote
want you
away,
guys to
promote
go
away.
get. Yes. The Career Hamster Wheel. This book is available on Amazon, okay? Go get this because this is self evolution. This is asking you the questions of what's your purpose, what's your how, what's your why. Um, the author on this is Devan Adams and Tice Nevels. You guys have seen my name down there, but you can go ahead and look this book up on Amazon. This is very important because this is 20 years, this is two decades of, and we still consider ourselves young, of young people maturing and learning, hey, we have to find a way. Okay. Now I got lots of books, so you guys don't have to catch up. Okay, this one, The Competitive Advantages, is an old book. This is by Michael E. Porter. I studied this book in my MBA program. It's a great book. Y'all should probably go read on it
I'm
because
I'm
that helps you position yourself.
gonna give you one more.
Go ahead.
One more.
One more, that's it. Oh,
See,
I
because
don't want one
all
more.
because all
All
the
right.
other guests they'll do one
The
book. So
okay. So the vision driven leader, this is for you as a leader. I read this book a couple years ago by Michael Hyatt, and it changed my life because I redesigned out how I wanted author Taiese Nevels to be seen. So this is definitely a good one for you as a leader of running your business because it gives you lots of tools in there. I have a lot more, but I'm gonna run them off anyway. Brian Tracy, great author. Go look up his stuff. When you're building out your business in your past 3 to 5 years, bring me back to talk about that because then we could go into the 80-20 principle. That's a great concept.
absolutely.
Oh, one thing that I know that's really important since people are just starting their businesses, the lean startup. Go look that book up by Eric Rice.
I love the
That
name.
helps you when you're talking about your businesses. And I talked about Lean Six Sigma a lot. That tool set and that methodology for problem solving is the reason I've been able to work in corporate settings for the last 23 years because now, as I mentioned earlier, your business has to revisit what's the policies, the process, and procedures because everything is evolving. And then you have to get lean with it. You have to get more effectively. You got to get efficient, got to streamline. These are just various other books I think are phenomenal books. I'm sorry, I have many of them. I'm an author, so you can't tell an author to just give you one book because an author really is a reader because I'm taking in
True.
information, but I'm also giving information out. But thank you, Collin.
Yes.
I'm honored to be on here. I'm very appreciative. I'm glad I got the
Absolutely.
opportunity to share some of my wisdom, share some of the things that I know I've experienced, not so much on just the entrepreneurial side, but from the side of helping corporations get better at what they do. But you guys, y'all can find me on social media at author Taiese Nevels. You can find that on Facebook and in Instagram. If you need to get a hold of Collin, say, hey, who's can we find Taiese? He got all my contact information. But once again, thank you. I'm honored and blessed.
Now it's displayed on the screen. It will also be in the description of this episode along with her book and the other two books, 3, 4, 5 books she recommended. So all that will be in the description. So make sure y'all read that profile description. But once again, Taiese, thank you so much. I really appreciate your contributions to this topic of teamwork makes the dream work. And as I always do, I would like to close out with this. According to the Small Business Administration, about 20% of small businesses fail within their first year, 30% fail within the second year, and 50% fail after 5 years in business. The tips, resources, and advice that we provide on this podcast will ensure that you are not one of those statistics. So hopefully y'all's out there taking notes. But until next time, we're outie.
Peace.